Welcome to This is Wealth. On this podcast, we ask, what is wealth? What does wealthy really mean to you? Most of us immediately think of money, but honestly, wealth is so much more than that. If you have health, deep friendships, a supportive family, you have great wealth. My name is Liz Crawford. Get ready to be impacted. I'm excited to announce Lisa Friel as my guest today. Lisa is an accomplished executive and longtime partner at Ernst Young before retiring in 2020. She was the managing partner of the San Antonio EY office for 8 years, but prior to that, Lisa worked in EY offices across Australia and Europe. I'm envious of Lisa's spirit of adventure and love how she takes calculated risks many of us, at least me, may be afraid of. She's a wonderful partner to me in facilitating our Let's Talk program, where we bring women into the conversation surrounding finances. Check the show notes for more information on that program. You will enjoy getting to know Lisa through our conversation. Thanks for joining us. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited for our conversation. As we get started, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. I'm Lisa Friel, and I have lived in San Antonio for the past 20 years. I originally am from Kansas City, so I grew up in the Midwest, but from a professional career perspective, I worked at Ernst Young 32 years.
Wow.
Was a CPA by trade, obviously, worked on the audit side, had a number of opportunities to travel internationally, and so after about 11 years with Ernst Young in Kansas City, I went to Australia for 2 years and then was asked to do another international assignment and went to Germany. And my job took me all over Europe as part of the audit assignments that I had. And then I moved to San Antonio in 2004.
Okay. So the international life of a CPA. Did you always want to be a CPA? How'd you get into the career field?
And that's a very good question because I did not ever think about being a CPA. My parents, one was an educator and one was in sales. So you kind of grow up, being exposed to what they represent.
Right.
And always thought I'd be a teacher for a number of reasons. And I went to the University of Kansas and thought I'd be going the teaching route. And between taking a business class and Accounting 101 and my mother indicating you really don't want to be a teacher for all the reasons that people shy away from being educators, that really I took the Accounting 101 and thought, help me understand debits and credits. And from there, it was just kind of it was a course that it had to balance. And
Right.
you had, not in the early stages of becoming a CPA, there's a lot of gray, but it's black and white. And you learn the rules and you have ways to continue to learn because there's always some new pronouncement coming out. But I never early on in my education thought about being a CPA. In fact, there's a funny story in my family where I was coming home after, I think it was my senior year Christmas break. And I tell my parents and my family, and as the oldest child, always wanting this level of perfection, oh, I bombed my test and I'm not going to major in accounting. And what am I going to do? And my brothers reflect back, of course I got a 95.
Of course.
And so I went into the profession. And even, Liz, I will tell you, you don't necessarily know what you're walking into when you go into a Big Four firm. And I went into Ernst Young. And it's not just about accounting. It's about how to work with people.
Oh, yes.
It's how to team. It's how to hire. It's how to educate, how to experience all things that the companies are doing that you're getting involved with. And so while, yes, it eventually comes back to debits and credits,
right,
you don't think about that as you proceed throughout your career. Because ultimately, even in fact, as I became a partner, people would ask me, well, when did you want to be a partner? And I would reflect, I'm not so sure I want to be a partner.
But here I am.
But when I grow up, I'll let you know. But it's all about the experiences that you get in that environment and just the simple words of CPA don't at all embrace the job or the profession that you ultimately get to do. And so you don't realize that you want to do it probably until very far into your career, that the experiences that you've had really take you to the next level.
So I'm listening with two ears. One is the podcast host ear, and the other is the mother ear, as my son is a sophomore at Tulane talking about accounting. And that's my husband and I keep telling him it's so much more than just numbers. Right. And you can parlay this into almost anything, but having that solid base, that foundation of numbers and understanding how things work, then gives you opportunities to do all kinds of things.
And I explain that to a lot of kids that I help mentor now.
Yes.
That just because you're good in math, it's not all about math.
Right.
And that's a good and a bad. Like if you really want to focus on math, I might steer you a different direction into statistics and actuarial science as opposed to all of the other things that this job ultimately does demand.
Right, right. So your career has not been the typical path.
No.
What made you say yes to the first opportunity that opened up that international door?
Well, that's a simple answer, because my first, the ask was if I would go to Australia to help on a proposal. And I had worked at Ernst Young 11 years.
Okay.
And I wanted to have an experience. Who wouldn't want to go to Australia on a company's dime?
Right.
And I thought I can go there for 2 weeks, help them on this proposal, and come home and have been to Australia. But the ease of saying yes to just wanting an Australian vacation as part of work became this whole path to where I'm sitting here today. When I arrived, it was all about a proposal. We won the proposal. And then all of a sudden they said, well, you're moving. You're in the proposal. Did you know that?
Oh, did you read it before we presented? Because by the way.
And I should say, it was immediately when I flew there that they asked me, we need your picture because you're going to be in this proposal. And I said, no, I'm here to help.
Right.
In fact, the funniest story about traveling to Australia as part of this proposal is I didn't even have a passport when they asked me to do it.
Oh my goodness.
So lots of people will always ask me, did you always have a goal to work internationally? Because it's such a, people want to do that now more so than in the past. And so I said, it wasn't on my radar. I didn't even have a passport.
It's amazing. And I think of just the experiences that it opens up that you would have never had. And working abroad just in and of itself is quite the experience. Taking that and taking it to the next level, working in Europe, traveling all around. I mean, as a young person, I think it sounds like so much fun. But here I am on the outside. Was it?
It was fun. It goes back to that old saying, you work hard and you play hard.
Yes.
So I was a brand new partner and I had 2 years in Australia, and after I was to be there for 3. And after that second, we won some work in Germany. And so I was asked, would you move to Germany? And in both of those experiences, you worked more than you could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. And I was a new partner, so you're learning how to be a partner in this massive firm in a foreign country without really a base of your friends and your family. You're creating those, but it becomes just this experience where you have an opportunity to work very hard, but when you're not working, I mean, when I was in Europe, when I was in Australia, I traveled to every location I possibly could. I mean, there wasn't a weekend where we stayed home.
Right.
And so you get to really experience the most amazing personal side of this journey, in addition to I learned more professionally in those 4 to 5 years than I ever would have learned as a first-year partner and sitting here in the U.S.
I believe it. I believe it. It's just different protocols, different customs, different all kinds of things. And then the travel on top of it just helps you grow as a person.
Right.
So I always say that saying yes to something means you're saying no to something else. What did you say no to when you went abroad?
I don't really, it was hard for me to try to think about how how to answer this question, I think, because I'm the type of person when I learned throughout this process and throughout this career that when you're asked to do something, at first, I was just the type of person that would just do it. And then you're asked to do bigger things. And I really didn't reflect until much later in my career that this is an opportunity, not a hardship. And if you embrace the change, embrace the opportunity, and embrace the opportunity to learn all these new things, that I never sat back and thought, what am I giving up or what am I saying no to? I only honestly ever focused on what I was being asked to do, either because someone asked me to do it, I'm going to go do it, or wow, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Now, early in my career, I didn't think that way. But I think the piece that you might have, that you would infer I would have said no to would obviously be in continuing the life that I had in Kansas City before I left. And or continuing the playing another year in Australia versus moving to Germany, or someone asking, will you move to San Antonio? So I do say then I would have had to say no to the continuation of what I was involved with in each one of those locations. But it was, in a lot of those scenarios, everything can't stay the same.
That's right. That's right.
And in fact, when you work for Ernst Young, nothing stays the same.
Yeah. And none of those felt like no's. It just felt like saying yes to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why when I thought about this question, I thought, I don't think I said no to anything. Now, maybe someone sitting in one of those countries when I left might have reflected differently, but I thought it was just an opportunity.
For you, it's just the next step, the next phase. So when you go abroad, you leave everything behind that you know, your friends, your family, your stability. How do you go about creating that in the new location? Because if I look at this from a risk perspective, I'm giving up everything I know and I've got to go recreate that. How am I going to do that? I'm not good with small talk. I'm not good with one-on-one, in group situations. So for me, that would be this most overwhelming thing to think about.
I think I'm just like you. I don't think I was someone that walked into a room and easily was comfortable. I never walked in. I was an introvert by nature. And many people say that. People that know me today would be like, there's no way. But I should at least say I truly was. And when you are all of a sudden taken out of your comfort zone and you go half the world away.
Literally.
And you have to find a way, if you're comfortable sitting at home and doing nothing or being home and not interacting and embracing this culture, then that's fine. But I was not that person. I wanted to really experience where I lived. I wanted to make sure I made friends. I wanted to make sure I got out and see the city, the culture, this part of the world that I'd never been in both locations, Australia and in Europe. And I will say it does help to work for a firm like Ernst Young. No matter where you go, the culture is very, very similar. And you can find even your peeps within that work environment. Yep. So today I have some of the closest friends from those locations. And you build upon that. And you just don't want to you want to be able, or I wanted to be able to really experience it and get out and find those people. And that really was a mind shift, because that's not who I was when I left.
But that was a step that you had to accomplish in your process to meet your goal.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What brought you back?
Oh, that was easy. I'd been gone out of the U.S. for 5 years. I'd been a partner for 5 years. And it's not designed in this culture or this work environment that you're going to permanently live overseas. And we had an opportunity here in San Antonio. I worked on telecom clients when I was overseas and in Kansas City. So when I moved here, I worked on SBC at the time, which then became AT&T. But it was just a matter of having the opportunity. They said, okay, it's ready. It's now time.
Right.
But I will also tell you, after you live abroad, especially in Europe, having traveled in Europe, after you're there for 3 years and you're going to the most amazing places every weekend, if not multiple times a month, at some point a funny story, I was at I think it was the Palace of Versailles with friends or family, and they were like, "This is incredible. Look at these gardens." And I said, "Well, I've seen better in Vienna." And then I had this out-of-body experience. I thought, that's not real life. And
it's time for me to go.
And so it was at that point, I didn't ever want to lose the appreciation of all that you're experiencing. And I wasn't going to be able to do that forever. And so it coincided perfectly with moving back. I will also come back to one other thing that you asked. When I went overseas, again, you're leaving your friends and your family, I laugh because my friends and family couldn't wait for me to go overseas.
So they could come visit you.
So I really never felt alone, because I would say someone from the U.S. came to visit to Australia and to Europe every 2 to 3 months.
Makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
And
yes.
I think it also makes you appreciate of really being able to experience foreign countries with locals and so now when I travel, if you can get connected to someone that lives there, you get kind of the local flavor as opposed to just here are all the things to check off a box that the tourist book says to go see.
Agreed. And it has a much more authentic experience to it.
Exactly.
That's really funny. I hadn't thought about family. How do you think your time overseas impacted your career growth?
2 things. Specifically, we talk about resilience today and how to work through hard situations. I don't think I had that part of my character early on in my career. I think having to go and make a way all by myself to start with, that you learn when you come across hard times, you can work through them. And
am I going to give up or am I going to push through?
And I couldn't give up. Otherwise, I was getting on a plane and coming home, right? And so that resiliency factor, no matter whatever difficult time came next, you pretty much could think through and say, oh, well, I made it through the last one. And every experience is different. But you also know, is this the worst experience I'm going to have? Because that one 6 months ago was really bad. And if I could do that, how could I not be able to do this? And so between the resiliency factor, I think that then leads to building confidence. Because again, if you believe that I was introverted before, I wasn't walking around with an air of confidence to walk into a room and do anything. But working in those situations, it built that confidence, and you could walk in a room and be confident and resilient and know whatever they ask, I'm going to figure out. I think the other piece, because I do believe working overseas created 2 facets for me, the character piece, but then also being able to see that when you're asked to do something, and while it may be hard, you can't look at it as, oh, this is just more work for the person who has worked the hardest and done, more work for the hard work that was already done. But you look at it from the perspective that it's an opportunity. And that's what I really encourage people now is, I didn't think that way for 20 years and I worked there 32. You realize that the opportunities that you're getting just create a stronger base. And I would have never had that thought or that mindset had I not worked, I think, overseas and just grasped on those opportunities.
And I think whether you know it or not, you're being rewarded by the trust that's been built in you for the work that you have done.
Right.
It's going to you because they know good work will come from it and they can count on the output.
Right.
Yeah. I can see how it sometimes might take a mind shift to view it from that side. And you're making me think about my own people and how we give work and do they know. And so I'm doing my own mental checklist here as we talk about this.
And I always, when I moved to San Antonio, I was an audit partner on big accounts. I ultimately probably was an audit partner on the most of the San Antonio audit clients, but then eventually I became the office managing partner. And for the 10 years that I was in that role, you don't realize I'm just going to say how unique the situation when I just said yes without someone having to sell me and negotiate and bargain with me.
Being on the other side of the table.
Yes. And so all of a sudden when I'm sitting there asking someone to do something and it's a month or two long process,
you're like, where's my yes?
So I guess maybe that's why I encourage people to not overthink it as much as you want to overthink it. Could I have thought about some of the asks? Yes, a little bit more. But for individuals in their careers today is to really look at when people ask you to do something, it's not a penalty. It's because they do have the trust. They do see the work you've done before, and they want you to have more opportunities to do more things. And so I encourage you to embrace it as opposed to want to find fault of all the reasons why I shouldn't go do it.
I think that's great advice. I want to touch on something you said. You didn't know if you wanted to be a partner, and yet here you are being made partner. So was that an accomplished milestone? How did you feel about that?
In any Big Four firm, in any firm where the ultimate goal is to make partner, of course, I mean, it's a huge accomplishment. For people that make partner today, I want them to celebrate and embrace because they have worked so hard to get there.
Right.
I was fortunate that I to some extent, I didn't go through the same process because I went to Australia on this proposal. We won the proposal. I got promoted as part of that and moved. The process and the goal and the accomplishment of making that step is huge. It cannot be understated. And so, yes, there's so much pride in that accomplishment that you celebrate. But it also comes with some sobering elements the next day. It's just like everything.
That's right.
Where, okay, what have you done for me lately?
Yes.
But two of the senior partners in the office I were in, I remember one of them pulled me aside and said, well, you do realize you're now in the club and everything you do represents this firm. Like almost to the effect that you're no longer your own personal.
Right.
You have to represent this firm.
You're the face of the firm wherever you go.
Absolutely. And that's sobering. Day two. It's probably not quite appreciated day two, but down the road you realize, especially when I was the office managed partner, you realize everyone looks at everything that you do and you don't do.
Right.
And you are the face of this firm. And then the other partner says to me, well, what kind of partner are you going to be? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
What's my choice?
Are you the technical partner? Are you the people partner? Are you the community development? Are you the sales partner? And you really have to be all four of them. Right. But to build a legacy, I think what he was wanting to start that thought process of, well, what kind of partner are you going to be?
Right. A heavy burden, day two. Here we go.
So yes, it's a huge accomplishment, a huge success. You're extremely happy that you've made it to this part of the journey. But at that point, the next chapter begins and it's a new journey.
So what kind of partner were you?
Oh, I don't know that I can answer that on this call.
Now I really want to know.
Well, yes, exactly. I feel I did the best when I could be the mentor, when I could have empathy, when I could listen and really, whether you were a new hire, a new partner, a tenured partner, whether there were, days on hand where you really struggled, I was there over time to help you see all sides of what you're going through. And the number of times I told partners, well, I know this is hard, but recognize when you go forward and you have the next hard thing, you've already done the hardest. I could use some of those life experiences again that I never would have had or experienced and help advise them. So I hope that that's the type of partner people think I am.
We're similar in age. How often were you the only woman in the room in leadership?
Many a times.
And
many a times.
How much did that improve over your career?
Oh, drastically. When I moved to San Antonio, I was the only female partner.
Wow. In San Antonio?
I was the first in San Antonio.
Wow.
Now, that being said, today, it's more than 50% female.
Huge strides. Let me ask you another question. How many of the demographics in the office are women versus men now?
The statistic and the demographic, I mean, we in any location, so let's say San Antonio, you're hiring 30 to 50 people. Really, the demographic has historically been 50-50 as it relates to gender, and probably across the firm, at least in the U.S. And so over time, it probably lessens to 30, I probably need to do my math here, 30-70.
Aren't you a CPA?
40-60. For all the typical reasons women may leave the workforce or leave public accounting, you have that same experience. Today, I think the partner ranks, when I started, it was probably 10% of the partners were female or less, and now it's definitely 25 and above.
I mean, really, from a demographic standpoint, that's pretty good.
Right. Yes.
Because like you said, there's reasons women leave careers.
Yes.
And so just the natural fallout. What made you retire?
So I'd been at Ernst Young 32 years.
Yeah, that's a number,
and it's a rarity now. I mean, most people are not working one place their whole careers. Now, I never felt I worked at one place because I moved a number of times and had so many different clients and experiences. But after so long, part of again, going back to the type of partner I was, I always believed that while we may be doing a good job, we need to do better, no matter how good we're doing. And what more can we be doing probably goes back to the first partner that told me, well, what kind of partner are you going to be? Yeah. You have to continue to improve upon it. Well, I had been the office managing partner for, I think, 8 to 10 years. I'd been in this office for 20 years. I really was not looking for a relocation after age 50.
Right.
And there, after so long, because of the culture that we have in that organization, you're constantly wanting to learn, you're constantly wanting to grow, you're constantly wanting to do new things. I really didn't have my new thing, and I knew I was driving myself crazy and others crazy in order to continue to improve upon things that people thought were just fine.
Right.
And so, ironically, it happened right during COVID, and by September of 2020, as the world is shifting, the job that I had was, I mean, I know we were all working remotely, but everything I had to do typically in my job was market facing and with people. And so it was just the right time.
Yeah, I can see that. And to your point, you had accomplished so much and been in that role, and it's hard. It takes a lot out of you to drive the growth, the office, the people. I mean, all of that is draining. And I think about, what is the right time frame for leadership, and it really depends on the environment, but 8 to 10 years is a long time to have your A game on all the time.
Right. And I will tell you, you don't realize that exact fact until after you retire.
Yes.
And people ask me all the time, are you glad you made the decision? Do you wish you had stayed in the workforce? And one of the things you learn is that we are 24/7 in some of these roles. And when you're constantly, what I tell people now is you can live in the moment. And before, you're always in a moment, even on vacation.
Right.
But you're always also thinking, and it's not the fear of missing out. It's the fear of, what am I going to find when I open my email? And that's why we all check our email on vacation, because you don't want it to have 2 weeks of buildup. And now you're not chained to that email.
Yes.
And you can be in a moment because you want to be in a moment, and you don't have to think, what am I going to find the next time?
I always say, what's it cost you to go on vacation? There's a toll. So yes, you can be in the moment and you can let that moment linger instead of wondering what the next moment is going to bring.
Right.
This leads me to a great next question. And this is not a judgment. This is something that I ask myself all of the time. I reflect on it. Are we helping clients do this? Are you living your best life? And for me, that's the goal that I'm trying to help my clients achieve, living their
Right.
best life.
Right.
So I ask myself on occasion, okay, what would I change? How could I live my best life in this role doing what I'm doing? And when you and I talk, I'm like, yes, she's living her best life. But that's me on the outside looking in. How do you answer that?
Absolutely, yes.
I love that.
And I also would challenge people and yourself, Liz, that living your best life, you don't wait for retirement.
Right.
And so make sure.
I think that's the essence of it.
Maybe the thought process of what I could tell you I think about now in retirement, and I thought this way during my career, is you're working hard, and once I grasped that, the knowledge that every opportunity was making me better, right? I still have deep relationships with my family and have deep friendships with people across the globe and had the most amazing career. So I would never second guess all those things that I've done. And now sitting here, now I'm blessed that I do have the opportunity to travel when I want to travel. And if someone on the dime says, do you want to go to Thailand, in 2 months, I can say yes. Or do you want to travel to here? Or do you want to do this? And so you select now, for me, the living the best life are really the things that I can embrace and do in retirement. I mean, I have plenty going on. I'm still very involved in the community here because of the role that I had at Ernst Young. So I still do a lot to give back to nonprofits. I still stay very connected to people in the workforce and constantly am their mentored off to the side on different jobs and crisis or opportunities. And it's fun to be able to sit there and just help the people that you've known for so long continue to see their success.
I always say this about people who have retired. There's this wanting to give back because you've created this lifetime of knowledge and achievement, and you don't just want to put it in a drawer when you retire. So how can you use it? And I think some of the most successful people use it by helping others get to the next level, help mentor them to the next stage. And that to me is just this essence of goodness and giving back that is, it's so humble because they're really pouring out things that they have learned that took them a lifetime to gather. And you're just this beneficiary of this great waterfall of information.
Right. When I retired, I read this book called From Strength to Strength, and it solidifies exactly what you're talking about. Like, we, throughout our careers, are striving and building knowledge, and people aren't successful in retirement, the book explains, because they don't know what to do with that once you're no longer
using it for career.
Exactly. And so this really helps demonstrate that you take all of the time now is to be able to take all the wisdom, and whether you monetize it in another career or whether you're doing things informally, it's all about using that knowledge and wisdom to give back. And I think there was another book I read, I think it was Halftime, that is all about finding your purpose. And, I enjoy every day, whether I'm out and about or whether I'm doing nothing, which is rare. But it's all about what more what you want to have. You want to have a purpose. I think everyone feels that way all your life.
Right.
And lots of times you have purpose because you have a job and you're getting paid. Right. But as you head into that retirement phase, that's where I really embraced, I want my purpose to be able to help other people, whether it's the nonprofit world, whether it's me helping people get organized, whether it's family and friends. I'm going to help you. And that's my purpose.
A purpose is so important in all phases of life. I agree. And it's probably the most lost when people retire. So when we have clients retiring, we spend a lot of time talking about purpose and fulfillment and what they're going to do, because it's amazing how you can lose your identity and your purpose, and it just can put you in a tailspin.
Right.
So when I think about you, though, you have all these different avenues of fulfillment that I see you use for yourself to build that.
Yes. I actually need more time in the day because I really want to play pickleball more. Because that's the in thing. And I have this whole group of friends that play all the time. But I also like to cycle on the road. And so I can't fit in pickleball because 3 days a week I need to be on my bike.
Right. Conflicts. It's hard.
I know.
So that kind of brings us to what you and I, teamed up probably a year ago to help rethink our women's education program.
Yes.
And we rebranded it Let's Talk because we wanted always to bring women into the conversation.
Yep.
And I give you credit for the name because I thought that was really clever. It is all about a conversation, and it's something that we never want to be intimidating. We want women to feel genuinely welcomed and just a part of the fabric of all of this conversation. So I have seen women tell me explicitly that their whomever professional advisor in whatever capacity doesn't speak to them, but speaks to the husband. Mm-hmm. And because you were in the public side, you didn't see that aspect necessarily in the day-to-day. What's been your experience with, call it women in finance on the non-public professional side?
I probably haven't had much exposure thinking about it, honestly, because most of the people that I have been the closest to are very similar to my backgrounds and my profession. But I think once you and I started talking about it and started my retirement, I started seeing a lot of different types of ways things get done or don't get done. And so when you asked about this program and if I could help, I, again, go back to always wanting a challenge and doing something new and thinking I could have this project and we could do something fun. It'd be meeting new people and helping train and educate them. I mean, it's right up the history of everything I've been doing. But I think it really hit home as I was researching it of, so many women aren't involved in the day-to-day decision making. And I can even give one example of my own personal experience where, I had to pay attention to my finances. I'm the one doing it all. But sometimes when it comes to things that you get involved with, paying your insurance, you get the bill, you're busy, you just pay it.
Right.
And so one of the things in retirement, I thought, I should look and see if there's a different, if how market facing is my insurance company, and is it high, is it low? And that's where you learn I've probably just been overpaying for the last 14 years because that's not an industry that rewards loyalty. But even something like that, you don't pay attention to it because you don't have time.
Right.
That would be my excuse.
Right.
And there's so many examples of that. And so I think part of this program is just helping women. It starts with, I think, helping women understand, but it's going back to the whole let's talk conversation, the tagline, because women will talk about a lot of things, right?
Yes.
Children and household and gardening and things that are top of mind because we're dealing with
right.
them. But we don't talk about money.
Right.
Some of it being that maybe we're not that involved in those decision-making processes. But I think this is the time, and what we're trying to achieve now is bringing them into those conversations and making women just comfortable talking about money. And I thought it was really interesting as I was researching it because, how we view money is very much based on how we were raised. And so that whole element is a whole
That's right.
It's a whole session of you have to think about how you were raised in order to understand how you act today is based on the behaviors of the past.
I think about a couple things. Statistically speaking, women run the household the majority of the time. Mm-hmm. And so we do the most spending for the household. Mm-hmm. And we're really good at it. And mm-hmm. we can navigate all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Often the big pieces, like you're talking about, the insurance, just the big pieces, the property taxes, whatever it may be, that aren't a part of like the monthly budget. often our spouse can run or significant other. And so we divide and conquer.
Right.
I've got this, you've got that. But rarely do we have time to come together, to make the time to sit down, to compare, to talk. And who wants to? You know, I mean, when you get a moment, that's not the conversation you want to have. And then oftentimes service providers have made it an unpleasant experience for the wife because they dismiss her. They don't include her in the conversation. I mean, I've had women tell me with their spouse that they have explicitly asked her to be copied on emails, to be called, just like the husband, and the provider doesn't. He just dismisses her. And these very educated, very capable women have just been out of the conversation, and it infuriates them. To your point, we all come to our money thoughts from how we were raised. And so it's hard enough tackling that as an individual, but then put two people together who came from different backgrounds, and you've got dynamite potentially. Right. So these are all things that we've learned over the years and that we tackle directly in this program. And to me, this is, I think, some of the most rewarding work we do, because I think both, you know, this is designed specifically for women. I think that you are capable of doing everything you need to. It's just understanding where we're coming from and who we're talking to that can calm the waters, demystify what we're talking about, and make this a wholly, completely different experience and a positive one.
Yes.
That's my motivation for getting involved. But
I think it can be fun. Like
I agree.
Our goal, I think, should make it fun.
No, I have found that when we do these programs, everybody enjoys it.
Right.
And it's because there's no shame, there's no negativism. We're about lifting you up and giving you the empowerment of, you do have this, you do know this. And yes, you're going to blaze trails. You know, I mean, I don't care if it's at your home, if it's at your job, it's just confidence building.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. The intent is to build the confidence, because I think women can be afraid to just ask a question.
That's right.
And I have said over and over and over, if there's something here you don't understand, it's unacceptable.
Yes.
Not to ask a question. And if someone's making you feel that it was a poor question, that you're stupid in that context, then that person may not be the right person to be involved with, because that is, it's your right to understand whatever it is you have a question about and ask the questions.
I couldn't agree more. I always tell people, you're paying that person, and if that person isn't making it understandable to you, that's their fault. As an advisor, that's my fault.
Right.
I've got to recognize that. I've got to stop. I've got to back up. I've got to make sure that I am speaking not in industry terms, but in layperson's terms. And that's my job.
Right.
I'm there to make sure that you capture this. You understand what we're trying to do together, because this is not me doing something for you. This is a collaboration among us. So I just think this program is so important. And the Let's Talk program, the fact that it's designed for women, by women, we understand this, we do this. We've all had different experiences to get here, but that's part of what makes it so much fun.
Yes.
And I am so excited to have your involvement in this, and look forward to what you're going to bring and your motivations for being here, because I think it just adds another dimension to what we're doing. And just look forward to it very much.
Excellent.
You know, we have people in these programs, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a professional, a retired professional. I mean, it spans everything you can think of. And we like that because it just adds depth to the conversation. From your professional standpoint, what are your thoughts on how we're educating young people on how to handle money?
Good question. And I think we're educating young adults, young children on so many things that this becomes part of that. And because there's so many other top of mind topics, sometimes this doesn't get to be number one, number two, number three. And so I really encourage, at least from the baseline of helping children, young adults understand what it is that money helps with, what money doesn't help with, always going back to your conversation about what is wealth.
Right.
You know, this helping children along the way understand the value of money and the responsibility of that. And, you know, it's funny because when I moved here, I just wanted to get involved in everything. Mm-hmm. So I even signed up for junior achievement and went into the classroom on the South Side for the first grade. And then I followed them to second grade and third grade. And, you know, just the simple concepts at that age of what's the difference between a want and a need. Mm-hmm. But this was just run through junior achievement, right? It wasn't a school program at the time. And the more, whether it's taught in schools, taught in the family, the more just knowledge about the basics and helping educate children along the way, I think it would make a huge step into their growth as they become older adults.
Yes, I'm a huge proponent of financial literacy, of teaching our kids. And while I'm this huge proponent of it, I also fail at it all the time as I just transfer more money to my kids' accounts at times because I'm busy, because, you know, for all the reasons we all do it. But we launched this summer our first financial literacy boot camp for really high school seniors kind of level and college kids. And I had my own kids do it. I mean, there was real personal motivation in this and solicited feedback, and people really, really enjoyed it. And the purpose, you know, that it gave them, it showed them. I mean, you're playing a game, so it's a little bit of that reward center, but it also led them to think about the next step. And if I do this, then this happens. Right. If I do that, this is the consequence. Right. And that's kind of the training that I want those kids to get at that age. And then we also did a little bit of a stock game, which is really hard to do in 6 weeks, but you know, we're just trying to get a little thought process in there about thinking forward and not that immediate gratification that our society is so rich on. I just want to counter that, and it gets harder and harder to do in society.
What did your kids learn?
So the funniest story is, she's going to kill me, but my daughter thought she was supposed to play the budget game like she lives her life. And we were like, no. Aspire to really fit the budget. And so she spent it how she should. And so, you know, once she made that switch, she really got it. And she's like, okay, now this makes more sense to me. But it was really, really cute. And my son said, like, I play this on my break at work. I really love this. But he's my CPA-ish maybe, you know? So it really worked for him.
He embraced it wholeheartedly.
And then my third kid dropped out. So I've got the full experience. But I just think as we're training women in these conversations and talking about financial concepts that I promise you already know, we're just going to put different terms to it. Once we can make it fit your environment, you'll go, oh. But then the very next step is, how do I teach my kids this? Right. And so I think these programs go hand in hand, is empowering women to have these conversations, to have confidence, to take ownership of that area of their lives, which they have every right to do, and then helping teach their kids how to do the same thing. Because the earlier we can get them on a path of financial success, the easier it is for them to reach it, whatever that looks like for them. But you're just trying to instill good values, good habits to accomplish that. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely.
If I think about your career again, and from a career and fiscal standpoint, because women do have a little bit different lifeline, if you will. We live longer. We often make less for whatever reasons. We may step out of the career for a period of time. There's just differences to our career path than men's in a lot of ways. So what is your advice to women starting their careers right now?
And I think the context is both from a career and from a finance perspective. I think early in the career, I mean, don't be afraid to have a voice and have confidence. And you know, along the way, there's going to be opportunities. You got to ask the questions and make sure you understand, but don't be afraid to, you know, you're your own self and you have the confidence to go and be yourself and take the opportunities. I also think, and this is probably a little bit of career and financial advice at all stages of life, is, you know, I want everyone to enjoy the moment.
Right.
However, there is definitely, don't live beyond your means.
Oh, yes, please.
And that goes, I mean, maybe like a prime example a little bit is your daughter, because she knows that the budget just gets the budget changes.
refresh.
But that doesn't happen in your own bank account.
That's right.
It just doesn't get replenished unless you've got a bonus or there's going to be another commission. And so I think in today's world of immediate gratification, we're real quick to want to just go and get the new hot thing. Pause and reflect. I mean, and that's definitely, I was overly raised on the, do you really need that?
Right.
And do you need to save for that? Because we're not buying that, and we'll pay half, but you need to come up with the other half. And so I really have seen also some situations where, based on overspending at an early point in your career, because now all of a sudden you have a paycheck coming in yourself and you've spent it all.
It's exciting.
And so just along the way, those would be the best points of, I think, career advice and financial advice I can give early in careers.
Yeah. So let's talk mid-career, because, you know, for you, that was probably right as you were making partner. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's all these options that kind of appear. And should you make a company change? Should you know, how do you parlay this into your next best move? Right. What would be your advice to women there? Again, going back to some of the things we've talked about, is really in mid-career, making sure you're continuing to enjoy what you're doing. And if you're not, then you owe it to yourself to think through, okay, can I fix something, to change something to make it better for myself and for the firm and for everyone else? Or do I need to look at other opportunities? And so I think, not saying I never left the place I was at. Yes. And that's primarily because I had so many different opportunities. But if you don't feel you're getting those opportunities, the first point I constantly suggest is you have to talk to someone about it. Don't be afraid. Again, have that confidence. You've got to tell people what you want and figure out ways if there's ways to get it. And if not, then you can't be afraid to try something new. That's the midlife scenario. And I think you also, from a finance perspective, it's time. Now you're going to start making money. Right. Now you're not living. I mean, we all in our generation, when we started, we lived paycheck to paycheck, and now you're not living paycheck to paycheck. So does that mean, how do you invest your money? Do you want to get someone to help you invest that money? Is there a way to, is it time to buy a house? It's all those financial decisions that, now that you have the money, is make the money go as far as you possibly can for the long term. I think you hit on something that just screams to me, because I hear this too often, that there's something you don't like, but you don't talk about it. You don't bring it up. Mm-hmm. And, often people are willing to explore the conversation, to give you opportunities, but you have to bring it up and you have to talk about it. Right. And you owe yourself that, and you owe the firm that you work for, to try and make those improvements. Right. And it's amazing at what can happen when two collaborate and try and improve things. Right. But if you don't have that conversation, then you never know what could be. Right. And that's when as I was supervising individuals, if I don't know there's a problem, I can never make it better. And now sometimes I don't know what the answer is going to be, so we'll work it out together. And sometimes I have to give perspective, as, I know you feel this is a problem, but let me put it in perspective. Right. And so there's all those conversations, but until the conversation starts, and if you're the one feeling it, you have to
it's best for you to be able as an individual to speak up, because at some point someone may come to you and say, we have to have a conversation.
Right. Any other retirement advice? I think yours was spot on with Health Purpose.
It's just, life is there to be enjoyed. It's not, I guess, part of my understanding and want to embark everyone on is the fact you don't have to be retired.
Yes.
To have that mindset, to try to have a bit of that mindset as you continue to go to work every day, that you can work hard, you can give back, you can feel grateful for all of the things, but again, be in the moment, and that's the goal of, I think, living a good life. I cannot underscore that enough. And from my side of the table, what I see is when people are saving up for retirement and they're saving all those experiences for retirement. And it's like, no, don't. I mean, sprinkle some of them in and let's build a budget that allows you to do that at a level you're comfortable with. I had one client who felt tied to her job all the time. And so she took her phone and took calls and did all those things when she was on vacation. And when she started working with us, we said, give yourself permission to put your phone down. Yes. Vacation is given for a reason. People need to unplug. So she said, okay, I will give that a try. She came back for the next meeting, and the whole family rejoiced at what a different experience that was, and how wonderful it was to have mom as a part of the family vacation. Because you're in the moment.
The moment. And then I've had, clients who have retired. They've done everything right. And then one of them gets sick. And so, again, you've pushed off all of those things you want to do. So we're constantly sprinkle those things in as you're headed down that road. Don't wait for that for life to begin. Love that advice.
That is the best piece of advice, is there's no reason to wait. If you want to take some of these trips, if you want to have these experiences, it's not 25 years from now. You have to build them into your life today. So you do have the experience of you've worked hard and you've played hard.
That's exactly right. So I have to, you brought it up, I have to ask the question, what is wealth to you?
Wealth to me is all the things that we've talked about. I mean, obviously, there's a part that it starts with money, but it's about your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being, your faith. It's your family. Wealth is everything that you surround yourself with, and how deep you can make that experience for all.
Yeah, I think it's I feel like it's almost like a cloak that you put on of all of the things that make you feel whole and protected and all of that. You've summed it up well.
Yes.
Lisa, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. And I'm excited for our audience to get to know you, because you're going to be a part of our programs. And so if anybody is interested in our Let's Talk program that Lisa will help me facilitate, you can go to Sendero.com and check the Women's Initiative page, and we'll have dates outlined. So those of you that are local and in our area, we hope to see you there. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there are so many great conversations that come from discovering the true wealth in your life. And I feel that when you see wealth for more than money, you will have true clarity in what matters to you. And that clarity will help you in every decision you make. Thank you for spending time with us. I look forward to the next time you'll join us. And remember, wealth is a lot more than money.